Everyone thinks hospitals are safe places. Clean, sterile sanctuaries where you're meant to heal, not fear for your life. But after everything I've seen, I can tell you firsthand. Sometimes, the darkest things lurk beneath white coats and sterile hallways. I worked at St. Michael's Hospital in downtown Boston, a prestigious institution built more than a century ago. The Gothic architecture loomed ominously over busy city streets, its towers and pointed arches resembling something out of a nightmare rather than a place of healing. I'd been there 6 years, respected by colleagues and admired by patients. But even all my experience couldn't prepare me for the horrors to come. The strange events began suddenly, just after a new attending physician named Dr. Raymond Kane joined the pediatrics ward. Young, charismatic, charming, Kane quickly became popular, known for his gentle manner with children. Yet something about him unsettled me. His dark, empty eyes, his smiles a second too long, his overly calm voice. Then the death started. It began quietly. A sudden cardiac arrest claimed a healthy 12-year-old girl, Sarah Mitchell. Her room was next to Kane's office. Nurses whispered about how strange it was, but nobody spoke openly, fearing what it might imply. Days later, another child, a boy named Anthony, died overnight, found stiff and pale, his expression frozen in terror. One afternoon, I saw Kane exit a patient's room, gloves still on his hands, his face expressionless. Moments later, frantic alarms screamed throughout the floor. Another patient, 16-year-old Marcus Reed, flatlined. Staff scrambled into action, the chaos echoing off sterile white walls. I watched Kane quietly slip away, unaffected by the hysteria around him. My gut twisted. I had to find answers. That night, alone in the darkened records room, I flipped through dozens of files, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead buzzing harshly. Outside, wind rattled the old windows, branches scraping like fingernails against glass. My heart raced as I found a pattern. The patients who died weren't random. They'd all been transferred to Kane's care shortly before their sudden declines. Digging deeper, I discovered something chilling. Yet, a century earlier, this wing of St. Michael's had been a notorious asylum, Brooklyn house for the incurably insane. Horrific medical experiments had taken place here, masked by false promises of healing. Patients had mysteriously died during procedures conducted by a physician named Raymond H. Kane. My blood ran cold. Kane, my Dr. Kane, shared the surname. A low scraping sound behind me snapped me from my thoughts. Heart racing, I spun around. Nothing. Just shadows cast by dim security lights. I exhaled, nerves frayed. But as I turned back, a file folder suddenly fell from the shelf, landing open at my feet. A photograph stared up at me. A man in a white coat, smiling coldly. Dr. Henry Kane, read the label. He looked identical to the Kane I knew. Same face, same hollow eyes. My hands shook uncontrollably. It was impossible. I took the photograph and sprinted from the room, heart racing, panic surging through me. Heart racing, panic surging through me. I didn't stop until I reached the elevator. My finger trembled as I pressed the button repeatedly, but the doors wouldn't open. A low whisper drifted down the empty corridor behind me. "Doctor." I spun around, heart pounding. The hall was empty, yet I felt eyes watching me. The lights flickered erratically, shadows stretching and twisting along the walls. A cold breath brushed my neck, accompanied by another chilling whisper. "You shouldn't have looked." I bolted down the hallway, sprinting toward the stairs, dread clawing at my throat. Footsteps echoed behind me, heavy, deliberate. Someone pursued me, moving slowly but steadily. The echoing footsteps grew louder, closer, echoing with sinister laughter, distorted and unnatural. I rushed into the stairwell, frantically pulling the heavy door shut behind me. Silence. I breathed, believed, but then laughter echoed through the stairwell, mocking me. It rose, high-pitched and distorted, reverberating from every direction. In a panic, I raced upstairs toward Kane's office, driven by desperate fury. The corridor felt infinitely long, my footsteps echoing eerily as lights flickered, bulbs bursting violently overhead. At the end of the hall stood Kane's door, slightly ajar. Stepping inside, my heart froze. Kane sat calmly at his desk, hands folded neatly before him, illuminated only by the pale moonlight seeping through windows behind him. His office was filled with horrifying medical tools, rusted scalpels, restraints, outdated surgical equipment, relics of the asylum's dark past. Dozens of faded photographs covered the walls, patients bound to beds, eyes wide in terror. "I knew you'd find me eventually," Kane whispered, smiling that unsettling smile. "What are you?" I demanded, voice shaking. He stood slowly, revealing a surgical knife gleaming wickedly in his hand. "I'm a healer. I've always been here. Feeding. Waiting." A piercing scream shattered the silence behind me. A familiar voice. Marcus Reed, the boy who died earlier. My stomach churned as he appeared beside Kane, translucent, eyes pleading silently for help. "I keep them," Kane murmured gently, stepping closer. "Trapped here, feeding off their fears. And now, you're next." His smile widened grotesquely, mouth stretching impossibly far, revealing rows of sharp, blood-stained teeth. My limbs froze in paralyzing terror. Kane lunged impossibly fast. Then everything went black. I awoke suddenly, back in the nurse's station, drenched in cold sweat. Nurses moved calmly around me, unaware anything had happened. Was it a dream? Hallucination? But I knew it wasn't. Something had changed. The death stopped. Kane vanished without explanation. His office sealed off as if he'd never existed. Administration denied any knowledge, dismissing my questions with tight smiles and veiled warnings. Yet I still hear whispers echoing in empty corridors, quiet sobs behind closed doors, shadows dart across hallways, faces appearing briefly in windows and vanishing on a second glance. A few nights later, I was alone, walking the dimly lit hall to my office. A chilling breeze passed me, carrying the faint scent of antiseptic and decay. I turned slowly, dread freezing me in place. Standing at the corridor's end was Marcus Reed, the boy who had died right in front of me. Face pale, eyes empty. He stared silently, motionless, until a cold smile stretched across his face, identical to Kane's. His lips moved slowly, forming silent words I couldn't hear, until suddenly, his voice filled my ears. "Welcome home, Doctor." He vanished into shadows, leaving me standing alone beneath flickering lights, terror clutching my throat. Now I understand the truth. Kane never left. He never dies. He just wears new faces, taking new forms, waiting patiently to return. The hospital shadows whisper his name, endlessly repeating stories of agony, fear, and madness. I still work at St. Michael's, but I can never leave. Not truly. I carry their secrets now, haunted by those whose lives Kane claimed, burdened by the truth no one else dares to speak, and sometimes in quiet moments alone, I hear his cold laughter, drifting from behind locked doors, patient rooms, abandoned wings, waiting, watching, smiling. Because Henry Kane never left. He's still here. The air in Havenwood Psychiatric Hospital always smelled wrong, like damp plaster and something faintly metallic, a scent that clawed at the back of your throat. For Claire Hensley, it was the smell of her own unraveling. She checked herself in 6 months ago after a breakdown that left her screaming in her apartment, clawing at the walls until her nails splintered. Now, she was better, or so they said. Released to a quiet cottage on the hospital's sprawling, overgrown grounds, she was supposed to rebuild her life. But the shadows here didn't let go so easily. They whispered, they watched, and sometimes they screamed. It started on her first night alone. Claire jolted awake to a sound, a low, wet rasp, like someone dragging a soaked rag across the floorboards. Her bedroom was pitch black, the kind of dark that swallowed light whole. Oh, she fumbled for her phone, heart hammering, and the screen's glow caught something. A figure at the foot of her bed. A woman, pale as bone, her hospital gown stained with dark, spreading patches, her head tilted at an impossible angle, and her mouth stretched wide, leaking a gurgling hiss. Claire screamed, and the figure vanished. The room was empty. Just a nightmare, she told herself, but the air felt thick, like it was pressing down on her chest. The next morning, she found muddy footprints trailing from her bed to the window. Bare, misshapen feet with too many toes. She scrubbed them away, hands trembling, and chalked it up to exhaustion. Havenwood was old, built in the 1920s, and its history clung to every cracked wall. She'd heard rumors, patients vanishing, staff covering up incidents, but she dismissed them. Until the visions came again. That night, the rasping returned, louder, closer. Claire bolted upright, and there she was again, the woman in the gown, her eyes black pits, her fingers twitching like spider legs. "They buried me," she hissed, her voice echoing inside Claire's skull. Then she lunged, and Claire stumbled back, crashing into the wall. The figure dissolved into a cloud of dust, but the words lingered, cold and sharp. Claire's breath hitched as she noticed the wallpaper peeling back, revealing a child's drawing scratched into the plaster. A stick figure with a slashed throat. She couldn't sleep after that. The cottage creaked constantly, sharp snaps like breaking bones, soft thuds like footsteps circling her. By day 3, the visions multiplied. In the bathroom mirror, a man with a shaved head and sunken cheeks stared back, blood trickling from his ears. In the kitchen, a teenage girl flickered into view, her wrists slashed, her lips mouthing, "Find us." Each one wore the same stained gown. Each one carried the same stench of rot. Claire dug through the hospital's records online, hands shaking as she typed. Havenwood had a dark past. Dozens of patients. Discharged with no trace. A fire in '73 that killed 6. Hushed up by the state. But nothing concrete. Nothing she could hold on to. Then came the scratching. It started at midnight. A skittering sound beneath the floorboards, like claws scraping wood. Claire froze, clutching her blanket, as it grew louder, faster, circling under her bed. She grabbed a flashlight and peered beneath. Nothing but dust and a rusted nail. But when she stood, the beam caught something on the wall. A Polaroid tape there, yellowed and curling. It showed a woman in a hospital bed. Her face blurred, her chest caved in, like something had crushed her. Scrawled on the back in red ink. Room 17th, 1962. Claire's stomach dropped. Room 17 wasn't in the cottage. It was in the main hospital, abandoned since the 80s. She'd seen it from her window, its windows boarded, its roof sagging like a rotting corpse. She didn't want to go, but the visions wouldn't stop. The next night, the woman appeared again, her gown dripping black sludge, her voice a guttural snarl. "You're next." Claire felt a cold hand brush her neck, and when she spun around, the Polaroid was on her pillow, the woman's face now clear, her own. Her own! She had to know. At 2 a.m., armed with a flashlight and a kitchen knife, Claire crept across the frost-crusted lawn to the hospital. The wind howled, carrying faint moans that weren't human. The front door hung ajar, and inside, the air was stagnant, heavy with mildew and something sour. Her footsteps echoed, too loud, too hollow. She found room 17 on the second floor, its door splintered, its number barely legible. The knob turned with a sickly groan. Inside, the room was a tomb. A rusted bed frame sat in the corner, its mattress stained brown and black. The walls were smeared with handprints, dozens of them, some tiny, some claw-like, all reaching toward a cracked mirror. Claire's flashlight flickered, and the temperature plunged. She heard it then, a wet, slapping sound, like bare feet on tile. She spun, and the mirror reflected not her, but them, the patients, crowding behind her, their faces twisted, their mouths gaping. The woman from her bedroom stepped forward, her neck snapping with each step, and whispered, "He's still here." The floor shuddered. A low growl rumbled from the shadows, and Claire's light caught something. A hulking shape, hunched and dripping, its limbs too long, its head mass of matted hair and teeth. It wasn't human. It couldn't be. She ran, the knife slipping from her hand, the thing's claws scraping the walls behind her. She stumbled down the stairs, its breath hot and rancid on her neck, and burst outside, collapsing in the grass as the hospital doors slammed shut. She called the police, sobbing. But when they searched room 17, they found nothing. No handprints, no mirror, no monster, just an old logbook, its pages brittle, listing a patient from 1962, Margaret Hensley, Claire's grandmother, admitted for hysteria, dead by unknown causes, buried on the grounds. The cops left skeptical, but Claire knew. She felt it. That thing wasn't gone. It was waiting. Back in the cottage, she locked every door, every window. But the scratching started again, louder, angrier. The lights flickered, and the Polaroid reappeared on her table, now showing her standing in room 17, the creature's claws around her throat. She heard its growl, felt the floorboards buckle, and as the room went dark, a voice, not the woman's but her own, whispered from the shadows, "You can't leave what's already inside you." The first body was cold before Nurse Lauren Hart noticed the veins. Not blue, not green, black, thick, inky tendrils spiderwebbing beneath Mr. Harold Greer's paper-thin skin. The monitor had flatlined at 3:03 a.m., its alarm drowned out by the thunderstorm raging outside St. Mary's Mercy Hospital. Cardiac arrest, pronounced Dr. Robert Carter, the chief of staff, already scribbling on the death certificate. But Lauren saw the ammonia reek of his breath, the way his scalpel-sharp smile didn't reach his dead fish eyes. And she felt it, the faint pulse still thrumming in the corpse's wrist. Lauren's locker reeked of bleach and betrayal. Someone had taped a photo inside, a selfie of her and Harold taken hours before his death. Except she'd never met him. His face was warped, mouth stretched into a scream. Only the camera caught. The next shift, she found patient 12 EB sightsing, black foam bubbling from his lips. His chart claimed allergies. None. But his IV bag held a cocktail of morphine and something unlabeled, its viscosity wrong. Thick, alive. The code blue alarm shrieked. By the time she reached the room, the bed was empty. "Transferred," said the night orderly, his pupils dilated to voids. The wall behind him bore a fresh handprint, fingers too long, nails clawed. The basement archives were a graveyard of lies. Lauren's flashlight trembled over patient files from the 1970s. All male, all deceased within 48 hours of admission. Cause of death, unknown. Each had a photo paper-clipped to their chart. The same face stared back every time. Dr. Carter, unchanged, unaged. A child's laughter echoed from the abandoned pediatric wing. Lauren followed it, her sneakers sticking to floors that should have been sterilized. The nursery door creaked open. Inside, a shadow crouched over an incubator, humming. "Hush, little patient. Don't say a word. The doctor's gonna take what you never heard." The incubator held a fetus preserved in formaldehyde, its tiny hands clutching a nurse's ED tag from 1973. "Lauren's Name." Dr. Carter cornered her in the morgue. Curiosity killed the nurse. He hissed, syringe glinting. But the corpse drawer behind him rattled open. Harold Greer sat up, veins pulsing black, and lunged. Lauren ran. The hospital warped. Hallways folding into Escher-like nightmares. Exit signs leading to operating rooms. She burst into the chapel. Rows of candles flickered, illuminating a mural of a faceless surgeon holding a heart. The real horror lay beneath the pews. Jars of organs, each labeled with a staff member's name. Hers still beat. The PA system crackled. Code black. Initiate harvest. Doors slammed. Lights died. Scalpels clattered in the dark. Police found Lauren's body in the parking lot. Her chest cavity hollowed out with surgical precision. St. Mary's closed for renovations, but the night janitor swears he's seen Dr. Carter in the windows. His face now young, vibrant, veins humming black. As for the patients, check the obituaries. Men keep dying at 3:03 a.m. Their veins ink dark, their charts spotless. And if you listen close during thunderstorms, you'll hear it too. The lullaby drifting from empty hospitals. A surgeon's promise. Hush, little patient, don't scream or shout. The doctor always takes the best parts out. Sleep well. You think when doctors save your life, it means they're good people. That's what I thought too. Until the night I died for 97 seconds in the emergency room of St. Anne's Hospital. Those 97 seconds opened my eyes to something hidden behind sterile white coats and reassuring smiles. It started on an icy December night. I was driving home from work, exhausted when a blinding light flashed from nowhere. Tires screeched, metal screamed, and I felt glass shower over me like razor-sharp rain. Then darkness. I awoke under harsh fluorescent lights, gasping desperately, tubes and wires crawling from my body like invasive parasites. Doctors and nurses surrounded me, faces obscured by surgical masks. A steady beep echoed nearby, matched only by my ragged breathing. "Welcome back, Mr. Carter," said a soft clinical voice. I recognized the lead doctor's name tag, Dr. Alan Price. Something in his gaze was colder than the stainless steel instruments beside me. Days later, as I drifted between consciousness and drug-induced dreams, strange details surfaced from my memories. Shadows lurking in corners, whispering doctors. Nurses who stopped talking when I opened my eyes. Sometimes I awoke to find Dr. Price standing silently at the foot of my bed, clipboard in hand, eyes unreadable. One night, I woke abruptly to muffled whispers outside my hospital room. Groggily, I strained to hear. "This one's perfect. Healthy organs. Excellent blood type," murmured a female voice. Nurse Holloway. I recognized her friendly tone, now sinister. "Patience," replied Price, voice icy calm. "We need the right buyer first." My blood turned to ice. What did they mean? Organ trafficking. Panicking, I reached for the call button. The moment I pressed it, silence descended outside, heart pounding. I waited. The door opened slowly, squeaking softly on its hinges. Nurse Holloway entered, her pleasant face unsettlingly blank. "Everything all right, Mr. Carter?" she asked sweetly. I heard voices," I stammered, feeling childish and paranoid. She smiled thinly, eyes cold. "Must be the medication. You should rest." She injected something into my IV. Instantly, my eyelids grew heavy. Her smile distorted, stretching impossibly wide as darkness took me again. When I woke next, I noticed something chilling. Beneath my gown, near my ribs, fresh stitches ran across my side. Had they performed surgery without my knowledge? I stumbled from bed, nauseous, gripping the railing. Outside my door, the hallway stretched endlessly, lit by dim, flickering lights. The air smelled stale, metallic, and somehow Rotten. Down the hall, I heard faint crying. A child's voice, trembling, begging softly. Please. I want my mom. Pulse racing, I followed the sound, peering through the cracked door of room 309. My stomach lurched violently. Inside, two doctors hovered over a young boy strapped to a bed. His face pale, eyes wide with terror. Dr. Price leaned over him, syringe in hand. Don't worry, he whispered coldly. Soon you'll feel nothing. No, I shouted, stepping inside. But suddenly the room was empty. Only darkness stared back, untouched bedding neatly arranged. Had I imagined it? Footsteps echoed behind me. Price appeared, watching closely. Mr. Carter, wandering isn't wise in your condition. I backed away, heart pounding. What are you doing here? Where's the boy? He frowned calmly. What boy? You disoriented. Let me help you. No! I ran past him, adrenaline overriding pain. The corridor twisted unnaturally, walls pulsing like veins. Lights burst violently overhead, plunging me into shadowy darkness. I reached an elevator, frantically pressing buttons. Doors opened, and I stumbled inside. I hit the basement button, anywhere away from them. The doors closed agonizingly slow as Price's silhouette approached, his smile frozen eerily beneath flickering lights. The basement was worse. Dimly lit tunnels stretched infinitely beneath the hospital. Pipes dripped steadily, the rhythmic sound punctuated by distant inhuman groans. Rusted wheelchairs and gurneys lined walls, covered in plastic sheets stained brownish red. A low hum filled the air. Machinery hidden behind sealed doors labeled authorized personnel only. I hesitated, breath shallow, then pushed open one heavy door. The stench hit immediately. Blood, chemicals, decay. Inside, rows of refrigerated units hummed quietly. One was open, revealing glass containers filled with human organs, labeled neatly. Hearts, kidneys, lungs. Horror twisted inside me. Behind me, footsteps echoed down the hall. Price's voice drifted softly. Sing-song. You shouldn't be down here. Desperately, I hid behind a rack, holding my breath as he entered, accompanied by Nurse Holloway. Their shadows stretched grotesquely across concrete floors. Harvesting is tonight, Holloway whispered. 3 buyers lined up. Excellent, Price said coldly. Prep Carter. He's next. Terror clawed my chest. Quietly, I backed away, accidentally knocking a scalpel from a table. It hit the floor with a sharp metallic clang. Silence. Slowly, Price turned, eyes glinting dangerously. Mr. Carter, why hide? You're our honored guest. I sprinted, muscles burning, pulse thundering in my ears. They pursued me through endless corridors, laughter echoing mockingly. Finally, a staircase appeared, bursting upward. I slammed into another door, emerging onto the familiar sterile corridor of the first floor. Patients stared vacantly as I staggered by, pleading for help. Staff ignored me, their faces blank, unmoved. They were all in on it. Security grabbed me, dragging me toward a dark room labeled isolation. Price waited inside, holding another syringe. Please, I gasped. You can't do this. He smiled sadly. I'm sorry, but your organs are far more valuable than your life. The needle pierced my skin. My vision blurred, consciousness ebbing. My vision blurred, consciousness ebbed before darkness consumed me. Price leaned close, whispering coldly. Welcome to the harvest, Mr. Carter. I awoke in my hospital bed, drenched in sweat, sunlight streaming gently through open curtains. Everything appeared normal, too normal. Was it a nightmare? But beneath my gown, fresh stitches stretched across my chest. My heart froze. Outside my window, I saw Price standing calmly on the sidewalk below, watching me intently, smiling coldly, knowingly. Behind him, Nurse Holloway and others gathered, all watching silently, their eyes empty and black. I checked myself out immediately, ignoring their protests, stumbling weakly outside. The hospital loomed behind me like a living predator, Windows' dark eyes following my escape. Weeks later, anonymous letters arrived, detailing harvest operations. Patient records with names crossed off, my name included. Photos of refrigerated organs. A note scribbled hastily. They're watching. Run. I changed towns, names, even states. Yet wherever I went, I felt their eyes. On street corners, crowded cafes, distant cars. They never approached, merely watched silently. Late one night, alone in my new apartment, a single knock sounded sharply on my door. Heart pounding. I peered through the peephole. Price stood patiently outside, smiling calmly. "Mr. Carter," he whispered, knowing I listened. "You belong to us. You always will." Terrified, I stepped back, tripping over something behind me. Another syringe lying neatly on the floor. How had it gotten there? My vision blurred suddenly, darkness creeping at the edges. Price knocked again, louder this time, insistent. As consciousness faded, I understood finally. The harvest never ends. They never stop, because to them, I was already dead. The first photograph fluttered from Mr. Kensington's chart at 3:03 a.m. Security guard Marcus Cole froze, his flashlight beam catching the glossy edge. The image showed a patient splayed on an operating table. Surgeons clustered around her like vultures. Normal enough, except for the shadows. Thick, clawed hands emerging from the walls, gripping the woman's wrists. The timestamp read yesterday. Marcus had walked that empty or an hour ago. Mercy Hill Hospital's graveyard shift was supposed to be easy. Check doors, log temps, ignore the whispers from the shuttered pediatric wing. But tonight, the CCTV feeds glitched, looping footage of the morgue hallway. Marcus rewound the tape. There, a figure in surgeon scrubs, faceless, dragging something lumpy in a biohazard bag. The timestamp? December 12th, 1999. The same date etched into the hospital's cornerstone, the year it burned down. Except Mercy Hill had been rebuilt in 21. The break room reeked of burnt coffee and something sharper. Marcus found more photos stuffed in the microwave. Patients mid-surgery, their eyes wide open, mouths sewn shut with black thread. One had his own face. The basement storage room was a tomb of forgotten files. Marcus' breath fogged as he pried open a rusted cabinet. Inside lay albums labeled Harvest. Polaroids showed surgeons posing with organs, hearts, livers, brains, all pulsing faintly in their gloved hands. The dates spanned decades, but the doctors never aged. Dr. Voss, chief of surgery, appeared in every shot, her smile widening incrementally until her lips split the frame in a 2023 photo. A child's giggle echoed. Marcus followed it to the elevator, its doors creaking open to reveal the button for sublevel 3, a floor that didn't exist. The descent took minutes. The doors opened onto an ore frozen in the 90s. Yellowed walls, a TV playing static. On the table lay a body bag. Inside, Marcus' twin, scalpels buried in his chest spelling run. The code black alarm screamed at dawn. Marcus sprinted past empty nurse stations, the power system hissing. "Don't you want to see the gallery?" He burst into the chapel. Candles lit themselves, revealing walls papered with thousands of photos. All of him, sleeping in the break room, reading patient files. Now, Dr. Voss stepped from the shadows, her scrubs streaked with bile-green fluid. "You've been such a diligent curator," she said, holding a camera with a lens like a hollowed eye socket. The flash blinded him. When his vision cleared, he stood in the awe from the photos, restraints biting his wrists. The surgeon circled, scalpels glinting, their faces melting into featureless voids. "Smile," Dr. Voss whispered. "You're the masterpiece." The new security guard finds the photos sometimes. Blurry shots of a man screaming in an antique operating room. time-stamped decades before he was born. The staff swear they're pranks, but patients on the night shift beg to be discharged, babbling about whispers from the vents and a camera's click in the dark. As for Marcus, check Sublevel 3's newest exhibit. He's there in frame 6665, his mouth stitched into a perfect grin. And if you listen closely during code blacks, you'll hear the gallery's refrain. Flash. Cut. Never scream. Mercy Hill keeps what the shadows glean. Sleep with the lights on.